Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 So we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 6. So we are going to continue from the verse 21 onwards. So we have so far seen up to verse 20. So can someone quickly recollect what happened in the first 20 verses? Rapid fire, be fast. Just recollect what happened in the first. Narada Muni starts to relate his own history. Vyasadeva was very curious to know what happened after you left the Bhakti-Vedantas. What is it that you did? What were all the events that took place? So he was curious to know about it. Obviously, being his guru, he wanted to know. And then Narada Muni started relating what had happened. And we also saw how Narada Muni took it as a great blessing when his mother left the body. And it shows the caliber of a pure devotee, how whenever reversals happens in someone's life, how they deal with that. And then later, what happened?
He passed through so many forests.
Yes, also we saw how Narada Muni completely dependent on Krishna. That's Prabhupada pointing out that the quality of a sannyasi, quality of a devotee is to be fully dependent on the Lord. So he travels through forests, jungles, all places. The whole aim of that travel is for what? Also Prabhupada points out one more thing. Develop dependency on Krishna. One more thing. Detachment, yes. But what's
to benefit
that's the point. We should not forget. The main point is that he wants to benefit others by going to different places, giving his association. So then later what happened?
He sat under the tree and then he meditated.
Yes, he started meditating on the super soul. He was absorbed in meditation. Then what was the consequence of that? Lord revealed himself, and then Lord
because of bliss.
Then he disappeared. The Lord disappeared. He gave his darshan and then he disappeared. So that's where we stopped. So let's continue now. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti-vaibhava Swaminiti Namine. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti-vaibhava Swaminiti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So we are going to begin with the verse 21. Now Narada Muni is getting the reciprocation of the Supreme Lord. The Lord is giving him further instructions, and because of these instructions we can see that Narada Muni's hankering for the Lord increases. So the Lord's instruction purifies Narada by increasing his hankering to see him. Text 21. O Narada, I regret that during this lifetime you will not be able to see me anymore. Those who are incomplete in service and who are not completely free from all material taints can hardly see me. Okay, this is a good instruction. So Prabhupada immediately in the purport he says, there is no trace of a tinge of materiality in his person, and thus one who has the slightest tinge of material affection cannot approach him. So if one is not sufficiently purified, then it is not possible to see the Lord. Prabhupada is pointing out. Prabhupada further he says, so what is the best thing? Prabhupada he points out that, so what is it that we need to do in this modern age? Should we also pack up our things and go to the forest and then stay there? Prabhupada says, the best method is that one should live at a place where the transcendental form of the Lord is worshipped. The temple of the Lord is a transcendental place, whereas the forest is a materially good habitation. A neophyte devotee is always recommended to worship the deity of the Lord rather than go into the forest to search out the Lord. Devotional service begins from the process of archana, which is better than going out in the forest. So the Acharya knows exactly what is as we were hearing today morning, what is the right medicine for the diseased person. So as we discussed the previous class also, both the things we follow, Pancharatra Vidhi and Bhagavata Vidhi. So on one hand, we give so much stress on Shravanam, Kirtanam and Smaranam of Vishnu, Krishna, and to be absorbed in the Shravanam, Kirtanam and Smaranam, we stick to the worship of the deities, which immediately puts us on an alert note. We have to be on our toes. We have to be ready to wake up in the morning, keep ourselves clean, take bath, do the necessary vratas, performing different kinds of austerities. So all those things helps us. So both the tracks are required. Okay. So Prabhupada points out, he says, by his activities he has engaged many devotees like Prahlad Maharaj, Dhruva Maharaj and many others in the transcendental service of the Lord. Here he glorifies Narada Muni, what kind of a personality he is. A pure devotee of the Lord therefore follows in the footsteps of the great devotees like Narada and Prahlada and engages his whole time in glorifying the Lord by the process of Kirtana. Such a preaching process is transcendental to all material qualities. So here the suggestion is given is that of all the practice, so preaching the glories of the Lord, that essentially we should learn that. That's very much required. Prabhupada is pointing out that. So there is a nice thing Srila Vishwa Sakrati Thakur is pointing out. He's pointing out that in this verse it is said that those who have not completely purified themselves, I will not show to them, the Lord says. So he is raising a question, but so what about myself? So like that, Narada Muni's situation. So he says that the intention here is to say, but I showed myself to you, therefore you are not a faulty practitioner. Already Lord gave a audience to Narada Muni. So but a general instruction is given that unless one is completely purified, they will not be able to see me. Narada Muni, you are not falling in this category. So that's the point. Okay. O virtuous one, text 22. You have only once seen my person, and this is just to increase your desire for me. Because the more you hanker for me, the more you will be freed from all material desires. This is an amazing point. This point we are hearing again and again. The more we think of Krishna, the more our anarthas, the more our sinful proclivities, the more our bad thoughts, our bad deeds, everything will be completely washed away. So the intensity with which we serve, to that intensity we will become purified. So that's the main point is being conveyed in this verse. Prabhupada points out that in the purport as well. The more a person is engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, the more he acquires a hankering for it. That is the transcendental nature of godly service. Material service has satiation, whereas spiritual service of the Lord has neither satiation nor end. One can go on increasing his hankerings for the loving transcendental service of the Lord, and yet he will not find satiation or end. By intense service of the Lord, one can experience the presence of the Lord transcendentally. Therefore, seeing the Lord means being engaged in His service, because His service and His person are identical. See this point? Seeing the Lord means being engaged in His service, because His service and His person are identical. There is no difference between the Lord and His service. The sincere devotee should go on with sincere service of the Lord. The Lord will give proper direction as to how and where it has to be done. There was no material desire in Narada, and yet, just to increase his intense desire for the Lord, he was so advised. Many times it happens in the lives of great devotees. The Lord wants to show to the whole world how my devotee is affectionate to me. Just one quick incident that comes to my mind is how Vidura responded when Duryodhana so badly treated him in the court. I mean, in front of everyone. He just spoke such bad words about Vidura. He just insulted him very heavily, and Vidura, he didn't rebuke, he didn't refute with any ill words or anything. He just took it as this arrangement of the Lord. this is a perfect arrangement of the Lord. Now it's time for me to leave this place. I have to go for Tirtha Yatra. I have to go in search of Krishna. I have to do this. So immediately took it as a great spirit. And what happened during his travel, his hankering for the Lord increased. Every place he was going, it became more and more intense. He was hankering. So this is what the Lord does. Sometimes we may not know why such an incident happened in someone's lives. Why it is like this. And then later we see that the person, Lord has a plan behind that act. So that's what is exactly happening to Narada Muni here. So that's what Lord is trying to do. He is trying to increase by being in separation of the Lord. The hankering for the Lord increases. The Lord also relishes that, and the devotee also relishes that. Okay. And another point, Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur points out that by this increase of hankering of Narada Muni, also he becomes more and more humble. So what's the point? The more one is absorbed in the service of the Lord, the more one who thinks about the Lord, the more one glorifies the Lord, the more he understands this, more he feels that I'm even smaller than a speck of a dust, in the sense, I'm so insignificant. That's how all great devotees feel. It's exactly opposite, no, in the material world. When you do something, we have some little talent, we have some qualities, immediately we think I am the greatest boss. We become very puffed up. But on the other hand, we see all elevated devotees, they feel themselves so insignificant. Wow, who am I? I'm just a tiny speck in this entire creation. So that's the difference between a pure devotee and a conditioned soul. Okay. Verse number 23. By service of the Absolute Truth, even for a few days, a devotee attains firm and fixed intelligence in me. Consequently, he goes on to become my associate in the transcendental world after giving up the present deplorable material worlds. Serving the Absolute Truth means rendering service unto the Absolute Personality of Godhead under the direction of the bona fide spiritual master, who is a transparent medium between the Lord and the neophyte devotee. Sometimes it's very difficult for us to understand when Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, what he used to do is he used to save his disciples or those who came taking shelter of him. He used to save them from when they were being searched for. They wanted their relatives or someone wanted to take them back to their material activities. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur used to protect them and save them from not being again getting degraded to the material life. What's the point? The point is that the jiva is getting the greatest opportunity to serve the Lord. And what is happening by that service? The jiva he is reinstated in his constitutional position. His intelligence, real intelligence, is revived. So that's why we say even few days of association with pure devotees, few days of service in the association of the devotees, it's the greatest event in one's life. That's why Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur used to say, right? Even a neophyte ringing bell in the temple is far millions of times better than opening hospitals, opening schools and doing any kind of mundane activities. Because that's the glory of devotional service. So that's being stressed here. And how that happens? It happens by the training. And by such training, even for some days, the neophyte devotee gets intelligence in such transcendental service, which leads him ultimately to get free from perpetual inhabitation in the material worlds and to be promoted to the transcendental world, to become one of the liberated associates of the Lord in the kingdom of God. This is an amazing point by Prabhupada. So even doing under the direction of the spiritual master, if one engages in sincere service, what is it that is going to offer someone? What is it that is a benefit he is going to reap? He will be transported to the eternal abode and he will become the eternal associate of the Lord. This is the again, we can see in this several verses that we are going to see now, we'll be seeing the power of pure devotional service, the power of the association of pure devotees. And we can see this theme is being maintained right from the second chapter, correct? Right from the verse Shusho Shraddha Dhanasya, you can see from that verse to attaining pure love of God, from Shraddha to Prema. And that you can see many practical examples we'll be seeing in the Bhagavatam again and again that is being recounted. That's the principle, and the principle is being exhibited by all great devotees that we will see. That's what we are seeing here. Okay. intelligence engaged in my devotion cannot be thwarted at any time, even at the time of creation as well as at the time of annihilation. Your remembrance will continue by my mercy. This is again the Lord is giving him assurance. That nice verse. The verse says, Matirmayi nibadhyayam na vipadhyeta karhichit praja sarga nirodepi smritischa mad anugrahat. Now, smritischa mad anugrahat. By my mercy, you will have remembrance of the Lord. You will have remembrance of me. So, usually what happens at the time of creation, at the time of annihilation, when we are born. See, remember, generally we hear in the Bhagavatam also that when we are in the womb of the mother, at the time we are begging, oh, my dear Lord, please release me from this tough situation. I am inside the womb and I am struggling and suffering, being bit by worms and so many things we hear. And the moment the jiva comes out of the womb, he forgets everything. He is asking me, pay me attention. He starts crying. Child starts crying. Give me milk. Give me this. Give me that. Someone has to pat us. Immediately he is caught by Maya. And then at the time of death, what happens? Same thing. Who knows which out of 84 lakh species we are going to be thrown into some other species depending on what we have done. So the scary part is the birth and the death. So Krishna is here giving assurance. So specifically you will be able to remember me. How? Mad anugraha, by my mercy. So he says, for that what you do? Matirmayi nibadhyayam. Intelligence engaged in my devotion can be thwarted at any time. See, if you see here, Matir Mayi Nibadhyayam, similar Matir Mayi Nibadhyayam, what Prahlad Maharaj says, Matir na Krishna Parata Swatova. Matir na Krishna, if the mind is not fixed on Krishna, either by personal advice or by a group, Parata Swatova, Mitobi Padyata Griha Vratana, the more you are absorbed in sense gratification, you are going to be the Adanta Gopir Vishatam Punah Punah Charvita Charvanana. You are just going to be chewing the chewed. This is what is going to happen. Either individually or by a group or by any advice, you are not going to turn your face towards Krishna because your intelligence is already lost in sense gratification. So here it is exactly, you engage with your intelligence in my devotion, then as a result what's going to happen? You are going to, you will remember me, he's saying. So that's a nice aspect of it. And Prabhupada points out about how by engaging in the Lord's service, that will, the more we engage in the service, the more we become matured. And the service matures and then it more and more accumulates, more and more we become matured, and it is always a great asset for us. And that makes us eligible to enter the spiritual abode. Okay. Text 25. Then that supreme authority, personified by sound and unseen by eyes, but most wonderful, stopped speaking. Feeling a sense of gratitude, I offered my obeisances unto him, bowing my head. So naturally, Narada felt profound. He was delighted by the instructions that he got from Supreme Lord, and he offered his obeisances. The conclusion is that the Lord can be seen and heard by persistent chanting of the transcendental sound. You see here? See this point Prabhupada is making? So what is a... I think yesterday devotees were hearing that particular lecture by Guru Maharaj, is always Bhakti-vaibhava Swami. What's the title of that? Everyday's Kirtan. So in that he is making one very nice point. Maharaj is saying that you may be sometimes alone, you may be only two devotees, but get into it, he is saying. Get into it. You get into it and you are in bliss, because wherever the names of Krishna is chanted, immediately Krishna is present there. And the more the devotee is realizing this by regularly hearing Bhagavatam, Gita, engaging in service, he will not be anyway morose or anything. Only two of us are there, nobody to play Vampar, nobody to play Mridanga, nobody to play. Just, guys, by clapping hands, one can get into ecstasy. Just by playing any small instrument, just by two, you can be, or you can meet 50 people also, and you can still be mental. Either way you can go around. So this is the key. The conclusion is that the Lord can be seen and heard by persistent chanting of the transcendental sound. That's what Narada Muni was doing. Narada Muni was so much absorbed in the thoughts of the Lord. And Prabhupada also points out that. So that means what? So chanting the names of the Lord, reading Bhagavad Gita, reading Bhagavatam, hearing from advanced Vaishnavas, is all what it is. It's all you are getting absorbed into the sound vibration. You have this, what do you call it? This, if you see this radar, the radar, it just continuously, it's moving around, And so similarly, when we just have, we have to get connected to the frequency, right frequency. We get connected, then we can get the waves. Similarly, just we have to connect ourselves to the Supreme Lord by enthusiastic chanting. Okay. Now Narada Muni, what happened to him after that? After the Lord disappeared, Narada Muni was, I'll just tell you this division. Narada begins to chant and becomes absorbed in the Lord and dies. I specifically myself, what I did is I just split many verses into some particular events. Many things could be broadly classified into one, but I just went into the details, splitting it like this. So in these two verses, we can see how he was completely absorbed in chanting, and the consequence of the chanting was he left this world. Namanyanantasya hatatrapa patan guhyani badrani krutani chasmaran gang paryatang tushtamana ghata sprha kalam pratikshan vimado vimatsaraha. Then I began chanting the holy name and fame of the Lord by repeating recitation, ignoring all the formalities of the material world. Such chanting and remembering of the transcendental pastimes of the Lord are all benedictory. So no need to feel shy when we chant the names of the Lord. Here, some 10 people are there, how can I chant? Wherever you are, be ready to chant in the streets, be ready to chant over the stage, be ready to chant in the plane, in the hospital, be ready to chant in anywhere. You should not feel shy. Feel shy. You see, what is the point being? Ignoring all the formalities of the material world. That's being mentioned here. He was not. He was so enthusiastic to chant the names of the Lord. And we can see early days devotees are doing that. Even many places now also, devotees enthusiastically go for Harinam and like that. But this is the point. We should be ready to give the holy name to others. We ourselves should get enthusiastic and with fire. We should chant the names, and we should also be ready to help others. We can see people getting benefited. Trees are getting benefited. The bacteria, germs, trees, everything is getting benefited. Then the human beings who are moving around, even if they criticize us, even if they say something, everyone is getting benefited by these Hare Krishna people. They immediately are benefited. Even just giving oral reception, everyone is benefited. And we can see in this particular verse, there is also Narada Muni's exceptional qualities are also being spoken here. We will see that 3 words are being used, specifically 2 words. Yeah. It's said here that Vimadaha, he was not proud. Vimadaha, okay, and then Vimatsaraha, 2 words. So these are the 2 qualities we saw. We see in Narada Muni. So doing, I traveled all over the earth, fully satisfied. That's also an important 3 things. Fully satisfied, then non-envious and not proud. See, this is the problem for us. We are neither satisfied. We are all the time proud. And we are just anything. Somebody does something, we are envious. So we can see the advanced devotee how he is. Okay. Prabhupada points out in the purport. He says that because they have the highest aim of life, going back to Godhead, they are never envious of anyone, nor are they proud of being eligible to go back to Godhead. This is amazing, huh? Remember, sometimes we think ourselves to be. We think this whole world should serve us because I am a Hare Krishna, or I am a full-time devotee. Everybody is in my service. That's not the conception of a pure devotee. Pure devotee's conception is completely different. He thinks himself, how I can serve others. You can see with the Narada Muni how Prabhupada also is saying. And one other point also I just remember is what is being said about the 6 Goswamis. What are the wonderful qualities of the 6 Goswamis? They were the ruffians and the pious people. Both of them were appreciating them. Dhira dhira janapriyo priyakaro nirmatsaro pujito. This is the quality of the Goswamis. Okay, following the footsteps of Narada Muni. Okay. Okay. See, what is their business? Prabhupada is saying, what should be the business of the followers of Narada Muni? Their only business is to chant and remember the holy name, fame and pastimes of the Lord, and according to personal capacity, to distribute the message for others' welfare without motive of material gain. I was just thinking, when I was just reading this particular statement, I was just thinking about His Grace Haripad Prabhu and Palini Mataji. They are very elder. In spite of that, they are taking so much strain. They are ready to go and do programs, some village programs. They need to go to down south, Ramanathapuram, some small places. Simple program, stage program, big gathering, house gathering, always ever enthusiastic to sing. Isn't it? How many times we have seen? Huh? So many disciples of Prabhupada and many devotees are so much absorbed in that. So they have got the essence, they have got the mood, they know what is the essence. So that's what we need to learn. We need to get into that spirit. And he says that's the only business Prabhupada is writing. In fact, the entire mission of Krishna consciousness is to kindle that faith in us, on having faith in the holy name, depending on the holy name, and preaching the holy name, and giving this message to others. Okay. So Srila Prabhupada is the Narada Muni of the modern age. Huh? He was the one who had the same spirit and he gave it to others. And Srila Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur, he points out that so he says that when will that time come when I will become an associate of the Lord? I had no pride or selfishness, since I always thought, who is more fallen than I? See, this is the spirit, amazing. Same thing Prabhupada is also saying. So, what is the song of Narottam Das Thakur? What he says? Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Dhoya Kora More Tumabhina Kedayalu Jagata Samsare. Then Patita Pavana Hetu Tavayavadar. He says that Mosama Patita Prabhu Na Paivayar. There is no one more fallen than me. This is all great Vaishnavas think. Okay. Okay. Evam Krishna Mated Brahman, text 27. And so, O Brahmana, Vyasadeva, in due course of time, I who was fully absorbed in thinking of Krishna, who therefore had no attachments, being completely freed from all material taints, met with death as lightning and illumination occur simultaneously. This is interesting. So what happened? What happened is because Narada Muni is fully absorbed and it was time for him, he was ready to leave his world. So Prabhupada in the purport, I just going to read one particular section of this. I'll just read the full one. As a very rich man has no hankerings for small petty things, so also a pure devotee of Lord Krishna, who is guaranteed to pass on to the kingdom of God, where life is eternal, fully cognizant and blissful, naturally has no hankerings for petty material things, which are like dolls or shadows of the reality, Prabhupada writes, and are without permanent value. That is a sign of spiritually enriched persons. They are not interested in petty things. Okay, and Prabhupada says, and for the pure devotees, such a change takes place, exactly like lightning and illumination follow simultaneously. See, you remember, when everything is pitch dark, okay, sometimes you see lightning. There's a heavy lightning. Along with lightning, there is illumination also. Immediately you can see things and there is a lightning. Simultaneously this happens. Not that the lightning, you hear the thunder sound and after. So similar, so that explanation is being given here. So that is to say the devotee simultaneously quits his material body and develops a spiritual body by the will of the Supreme. So that's what has happened simultaneously. So Prabhupada also says, a devotee is just, his death for a devotee is like this, he's just lying down, he closes his eyes, he opens the eyes and he's with Krishna. In one place Prabhupada writes like this. Even before death, a pure devotee has no material affection due to his body is being spiritualized like a red hot iron in contact with fire. Okay. So now, further, Narada Muni is going to speak about how he attained perfection. Now the next two verses speaks about how he reappeared from the Lord's transcendental body. Having been awarded, verse number 28. Having been awarded a transcendental body befitting an associate of the personality of Godhead, I quit the body made of 5 material elements and thus all acquired fruitive results of work. This transcendental body is free from material affinity and invested with 3 primary transcendental qualities, namely eternity, freedom from the material modes, and freedom from reactions of fruitive activities. So Prabhupada talks about what does the transcendental body constitutes of. And then he says, a devotee's body becomes at once surcharged with the transcendental qualities as soon as he is engaged in the devotional service of the Lord, which acts like the magnetic influence of a touchstone upon iron. The influence of transcendental devotional service is like that. So Prabhupada gives the example of iron. When you put iron in the fire, it becomes red hot. It develops all the quality of the fire. Here he specifically speaks about the touchstone upon iron. So it has got a magnetical influence. Now Prabhupada, here he gives few examples of next line is very important. He says, therefore, change of the body means stoppage of the action of the three qualitative modes of material nature upon the pure devotee. So change of body can mean no more the material modes acts on the body of a pure devotee. So that is one point. There are many instances of this in the revealed scriptures. Dhruva Maharaj and Prahlad Maharaj and many other devotees were able to see the personality of Godhead face to face in their own body, right? They saw the Lord, they didn't change their body. They were in the same body, they saw the Lord, they had darshan of the Lord. Okay. So there are many, that's what he said, face to face. This means that the quality of a devotee's body changes from material to transcendence. This is what we need to understand. That is the opinion of the authorized Goswamis via the authentic scriptures. In the Brahma Samhita it is said that beginning from the Indra Gopa germ up to the great King Indra, King of heaven, all living entities are subjected to the law of karma and are bound to suffer and enjoy the fruitive results of their own work. Only the devotee is exempt from such reactions by the causeless mercy of the supreme authority, the personality of Godhead. So somebody may question, see, this body is the result of prarabdha karma. Someone can tell that. Yes, that's also true. But for a devotee who is so much absorbed in the service of the Lord, and his body becomes spiritualized. Okay, and when we just see the nectar of devotion, it is also said that a general pattern is that yes, when one becomes completely purified, he will leave this body and he will get he will take a spiritual body. That is also there. Now, within this, it's Lord's will, Lord's arrangement. We can see the example of Dhruva Maharaj. How did Dhruva Maharaj go to the spiritual abode? In the same body. The Vaikuntha plane came and he went in the same body. So examples are there in the scriptures. So the general pattern is also there that one can just give up this body and take the spiritual body. That is also there. But at the same time, your devotee, as Prabhupada says right there in this purport, the effect of the three modes will not affect him. Because if Prabhupada gives the example of this fan, do you remember? When the fan is switched off, then the fan doesn't stop, but then because of the previous effect, it just rotates. So it's like that. So when a devotee is advanced and more he is engaged in service of the Lord, then the effect of the modes doesn't affect us because he has purified himself sufficiently. Here specifically, and also it is mentioned here simultaneously as the the thunder and the lightning and illumination. So he just left his body and immediately got into the spiritual body. Now how he got into this spiritual body, we will see in the upcoming verses. At the end of the millennium, when the personality of Godhead, Lord Narayan, lay down within the water of devastation, Brahma began to enter him along with all creative elements, and I also entered through his breathing. So he was in the he entered the body of Vishnu. So he was in the body of Vishnu, and here it is further mentioned. This is an interesting question can be raised. If you have an eternal body, then why are you known to be born from Brahma in this Swayambhuva Manvantara? That's a question that is being raised. So it is, Vishnu Chakravarti gives a very simple example and he explains. See, the thing is that whatever the qualities and the Lord has, similar qualities the devotee will not have. Why the Supreme Lord, who is unborn, he is born? What's the answer for that? Why do you say he is born? Apparently he is born to Devaki and Vasudeva, right? So what is the explanation? The Lord appears. The Lord appears out of his own free will. Right? Similar example is given here. Just as the Lord for his particular pastimes entered the womb of Devaki from the pastimes of being the son of Brahma, at the end of the previous Kalpa, I entered the body of Brahma. So similarly, I also entered. I am completely in control of the Lord. It's just an additional information I just added here. Okay. After 4020 million solar years, when Brahma awoke to create again, by the will of the Lord, all the rishis like Marichi, Angira, Atri, and so on were created from the transcendental body of the Lord, and I also appeared along with them. Okay, Prabhupada points out here that Narada appears in the same transcendental body just as a man awakes from sleep in the same body. Sri Narada is eternally free to move in all parts of the transcendental and material creations of the Almighty. He appears and disappears in his own transcendental body, which is without distinction of body and soul, unlike conditioned beings. So this is the empowerment of the Supreme Lord. The Lord empowers specific jivas in his service. So the Lord may provide so many different kinds of abilities that is possible. So we will also see there is one verse which Etad Ishanam Ishasya. This verse explains. I don't remember the rest of the verse, but I remember the translation of it. So we can see the qualities that we see in the Lord can be seen with his devotees also. How the Lord is not influenced by the three modes, similarly the devotee is also not influenced by the three modes. You can check this verse later. It's a very nice verse. So 31 to 36 verses, which speaks about Narada begins to travel and preach Lord's glories and the power of devotional service. Since then, by the grace of the Almighty Vishnu, I travel everywhere without restriction, both in the transcendental world and in the three divisions of the material world. This is because I am fixed in unbroken devotional service of the Lord. So, if you become fixed in unbroken devotional service of the Lord, you will be able to travel. Specifically here, Narada Muni is referred. Anugrahan Mahavishnu Avighata Gati Kvachit. Without Avighata here refers to without any restriction. No passport, no visas, no boundaries. You could go anywhere. So that was his glory. Okay, this is a specific, I have just marked it here. See, there's a proper how he coins. I'll just read this 2 lines alone. But Sri Narada Muni is transcendental to all these material modes. The Prabhupada, before he is explaining about how the influence of Rajoguna, Tamoguna, Sattvaguna and the 3 modes, how it influences. And he says that Narada Muni is beyond all these things. He is a liberated spaceman, Prabhupada coins. See, so many people are doing this space endeavors, they are all becoming astronauts trying to go to Mars and so many. But Narada Muni is a liberated spaceman. It's a very unique way Prabhupada has written it. The causeless mercy of Lord Vishnu is unparalleled, and such mercy is perceived by the devotees only by the grace of the Lord. Okay, here Narada Muni's position is also, Prabhupada is mentioning here. This fact is disclosed in the Nrsimha Purana. Rishis like Marichi are authorities in fruity work, and rishis like Sanaka and Sanatana are authorities in philosophical speculations. But Sri Narada Muni is a prime authority for transcendental devotional service of the Lord, and he is famous for his Narada Bhakti Sutra. Okay, here is some interesting information coming up. And thus I travel constantly singing the transcendental messages of the glories of the Lord, vibrating this instrument called a veena, which is charged with transcendental sound and which was given to me by Lord Krishna. The musical stringed instrument called the veena, which was handed to Narada by Lord Sri Krishna, is described in the Linga Purana, and this is confirmed by Srila Jiva Goswami. This transcendental instrument is identical with Lord Sri Krishna and Narada because all of them are of the same transcendental category. Sound vibrated by the instrument cannot be material, and therefore the glories and pastimes which are broadcast by the instrument of Narada are also transcendental. So the instrument is actually used to glorify the Supreme Lord. In fact, that is the entire Sa Re Gama Pada Nisa. The notes are meant to glorify the Supreme Lord. Shabda Brahman. What is that? Without a tinge of material inebriety. The 7 singing meters, namely Sha, Ra, Ga, Ma, Pa, Dha, Ani, Shadja, Rishabha, Gandhara, Madhyama, Panchama, Daivata and Nishada are all transcendental and specifically meant for transcendental songs. So we should remember this. If you become a musician and don't go and then sing for someone else, glorify the Lord. Many musicians are sitting here. I mean, devotee musicians. Let me clarify that. They have exceptional talent, what wonderful voice, which you can glorify the Lord. Okay. Following in the footsteps of Srila Narada Muni, a self-realized soul in the material world also properly uses the sound meters, namely Saregama, etc., in the service of the Lord by constantly singing His glories. So Krishna says, Mahatmanas Mahapartya. So elsewhere in the Bhagavatam, one of the purports, it is written, the musical notes are Sa, Re, Gha, Ma, Dha, Ni. All these sound vibrations are originally called Shabda Brahma or spiritual sound. Okay. Now, it's also in Vishnu Chakravarti in his commentary, he says, he's using, let me just, I made a note of it. There are two things. One is called Alapana, Alapas and Murchayatva. He's saying, see, these are, so what Narada Muni is in ecstasy. Narada Muni is great ecstasy, sing the glories of the Lord. And so what they do is, these Alapas are, there are different ways it can be, the Acharyas give different meanings. One is that sometimes Murchayatva, that means that, one becomes completely, he faints in ecstasy like that. That is one meaning. And with respect to musical term, so these alapas are, you don't have any text, you just elaborate the ragas. It's just kind of a prelude before you sing the song. Prelude, you understand, right? Before you start the song. So in great ecstasy, you just split the raga. So like that, Narada Muni was in complete ecstasy. He was singing, and then Murchayatva means, you need to practice. You sometimes the breath has to be controlled. It's not so easy to sing. So all those things, in great ecstasy, he was performing all these activities. And it's also mentioned about this. I do not know. There may be someone. There is some story how Narada Muni got the veena. I did not have time to look into the Linga Purana. So anyway, so Jiva Goswami says that that's how he got it. Okay, that's what Prabhupada is mentioning here. Okay. Here in this verse, it's mentioned, nice point, it says, Pragayatasva viryani tirthapada priyashravaha ahuta ivame shigram darshanam yati chetasi. The Supreme Lord Sri Krishna, whose glories and activities are pleasing to hear, at once appears on the seat of my heart. Oh, what a great personality is Narada. He just sings, the Lord comes and sits in his heart. As if called for, as soon as I begin to chant his holy activities. So, either he speaks, he sings, immediately the Lord comes and sits. Okay, please look into this purport. Interesting point Prabhupada is making. As soon as a pure devotee engages himself in the pure devotional service of hearing, chanting and remembering the name, fame and activities of the Lord, at once he becomes visible to the transcendental eyes of the pure devotee by reflecting himself on the mirror of the heart by spiritual television. This is Prabhupada's brilliance. So you can see the Lord immediately in the heart. Okay, see here, Prabhupada further he says, it is a natural psychology in every individual case that a person likes to hear and enjoys personal glories enumerated by others. Nobody can hide this. No. And then inside the room, what is it? Nice point he said. But actually here Prabhupada is giving the psychology. What is this? From where is this? Even this desire, for us, somebody glorifies, we like to enjoy that. From where it is coming? Prabhupada is pointing out here. He says, that is a natural instinct, and the Lord, being also an individual personality like others, is not an exception to this psychology, because psychological characteristics visible in the individual souls are but reflections of the same psychology in the absolute Lord. Urdhva moolam adashakam. The problem for us is, when we just start to meditate on someone else glorifying us, that becomes trap for us. We just sink down. But for the Lord, He relishes. But actually, we will see how the acharyas are looking at this particular situation. How we will see. We will come to that. Yes, the Lord likes to hear His glorifications. Again, Prabhupada he writes, Srila Narada chants the glorification of the Lord not for his personal benefit, but because the glorifications are identical with the Lord. Narada Muni penetrates into the presence of the Lord by the transcendental chanting. See, who can penetrate into the Lord or come into the audience of the Lord, bring the Lord's attention when one just does the glorification of the Lord just for His pleasure. The Lord is pleased immediately. Otherwise you may be very scholarly, you may be very intelligent, you may have the brilliant voice, you may be playing the instruments in the most subtlest way, the most precise way, sounding wonderful, everything you can do, but we cannot penetrate into the Lord's audience. It's not possible unless we do it selflessly for His pleasure. That's the whole key factor here. See, again and again we see these bhakti points. It's being reminded for our purification. Okay. So here there is another point here. Is Sridhar Thakur is pointing out. He's saying that he's quoting Jiva Goswami. He's saying that Jiva Goswami explains that the Lord is not attracted for His own glorification, but to give mercy to those devotees. So, is it a contradiction? No contradiction. Simultaneously, the Lord does both. He likes when these pure devotees glorify Him. At the same time, His intention is to give audience to His devotee. So He likes to take the association of His devotee. So we have seen sometimes Prabhupada writes this point. There is a transcendental competition between the Lord and His devotee. The Lord is trying to please His devotee, the devotee is trying to please the Lord. So this is transcendental. Only a devotee can understand this. Others cannot be. Who can understand this? This is understanding of the pure devotees. Okay. It is personally, text 34, it is personally experienced by me that those who are always full of cares and anxieties due to desiring contact of the senses with their objects can cross the ocean of nations on a most suitable boat, the constant chanting of the transcendental activities of the personality of God. And let's read this verse, very nice verse. Etad dhyatura chittanam etadhi atura chittanam matra sparshe chaya muhu bhavasindu plavo drishto haricharyanu varnanam. So, atura chittanam, whose mind is always in anxiety. Mind is agitated, disturbed. Disturbed because of what? Because of senses going in touch with the sense objects. Now, what is the solution for that? What is the remedy? The remedy is haricharyanu varnanam. If you absorb yourself in serving the Supreme Lord, glorifying Him, then this senses getting stuck with the sense objects and the consequence of it, of mental disturbance, all kinds of disturbance, you will be free from that. That's what Narada Muni is suggesting here. And he says, personally I have experienced this, he says. Okay, now Prabhupada is giving some practical suggestions here. He's giving suggestions for the practitioners. He says, but if one wants actual happiness, one must change the subject matter only. Instead of talking of the politics of a dying man, recently one of the ministers in this state, probably a year back, she left this world, and there was so much talk what is happening about her. Several YouTube videos were released in the newspapers. Huge sections about what is her situation was discussed, and there are so many interviews, so many things. Till the last moment, nobody knew how she died, what is the cause of it. But Prabhupada is saying that why do waste time on it? Anyway, we are going to die. So Prabhupada says, instead of talking of the politics of a dying man, one might discuss the politics administered by the Lord Himself. He says, instead of relishing activities of the cinema artists, one can turn his attention to the activities of the Lord with His eternal associates like the Gopis and Lakshmis. So in this way get absorbed, he is saying. The Almighty Personality of Godhead, by His causeless mercy, descends to the same time, descends to the earth and manifests activities almost on the line of the worldly men, but at the same time extraordinary because He is Almighty. So now here Prabhupada concludes this purport with one other interesting point. He says, this is stated from personal experience by such an authority as Sri Narada Muni. So let us have some faith when the great authorities speak. So Prabhupada is saying that listen what he is saying. He is speaking from his own authority. And we can have the same experience also if we begin to follow in the footsteps of the great sage, the dearmost devotee of the Lord. So that's the point. So if we follow in the footsteps of the great devotees who are following the footsteps of Narada Muni, we are on a very safe path. No speculation, nothing concocted. So while discussing, I discussed that point that here it is Haricharyanu Varnanam, it is said. Haricharyanu Varnanam doesn't mean that only singing the holy name. It can be glorification, hearing, Shravanam, everything is included. It's a whole package. Okay? But always the chief component, the Kirtana, is being stressed. So what it includes, whenever Kirtana we say, it's chanting of the holy name, hearing the Bhagavatam, all those processes are included. Okay. So what's the text number?
35.
Okay. It is true that by practicing restraint of the senses by the yoga system, one can get relief from the disturbances of desire and lust. But this is not sufficient to give satisfaction to the soul, for this is derived from devotional service to the personality of God. Already this is discussed, Achyuta bhava varjitam. This is discussed, right? Jnana or karma. Jnana, you practice karma without even expecting any fruitive results. Or your jnana is about, you are completely without any personal benefit or anything you derive. Even the jnana takes you to the platform of moksha. Still it cannot give satisfaction to the soul. What does the Chaitanya Charitamrita says about it? Siddhikami, Bhuktikami. Siddhikami, Bhukti, Mukti, Siddhikami, Shakala, Shanta. Krishna Bhakti Atayeva, Nishkama Atayeva Shanta. So that's the point. So unless one engages in pure devotional service, one cannot get happiness. So that's the key point here. The Prabhupada speaks about transcendental engagement in the service of the Lord, and he says the glorification of how by transcendentally engaging the service in the senses in the service of the Lord, one is purified. He gives example of two opposing nature. One is here giving the example of Vishwamitra and Menaka, and in the contrary he speaks about the devotee of Namacharya Haridas Thakur, how he transcended by following the principles of bhakti. So he's giving this example to show what? Yeah, the power of devotion, the superiority of bhakti over other processes. Okay. O Vyasadeva, you are freed from all sins. Thus I have explained my birth and activities for self-realization, as you asked. All this will be conducive for your personal satisfaction also. So Narada Muni says, I have shared with you whatever that I have experienced. I am sure you will be benefited by this. All the mysteries of transcendental realization are duly experienced by Narada Muni himself, and therefore by hearing such an authority one can have some idea of the results of devotional life, which are hardly delineated even in the original texts of the Vedas. So that's why you see, what is it, whom we follow? What the Mahabharata says? Mahajano yena gata sapantaha. Isn't it? So that is the principle that we follow. That's very powerful when you just hear from a Mahajana. So here Narada is sharing his realizations. In the Vedas and Upanishads there are only indirect hints to all this. Nothing is directly explained there. And therefore Srimad Bhagavatam is the mature fruit of all the Vedic trees of literatures. So finally, Sutta Goswami, he uses his opportunity and then he glorifies Narada Muni in 2 verses. Thus addressing Vyasadeva, Sridhar Narada Muni took leave of him, and vibrating on his veena instrument, he left to wander at his free will. Okay. So here Prabhupada is using this opportunity and explaining. Narada was everybody desires this. I don't want any boundaries, any restriction. I want to be free. Let me be completely independent. Yeah, our independence is within the boundary of the Lord's will. That is our independence. So Prabhupada, you remember in the Bhagavad Gita, in the 2nd chapter, for the Raga Dvesha Vimukta is 2 verse, he translates it like this. He says, regulative principles of freedom. Prabhupada says. Regulative principles means you have to follow some regulation. Then where is his freedom? No meat eating, no illicit sex, no gambling, no intoxication. Where is the freedom? Yeah, you follow this, you are free. You are just completely free. You are very happy. You don't have anxiety. You don't have any tension. Simultaneously engaging in devotional service. That's the regulative principles of freedom. Very nicely Prabhupada coined. So similarly, Prabhupada is pointing out here the purport. Similarly, the transcendental system of devotional service is also free. It may or may not develop in a particular person even after he undergoes all the detailed formulas. Similarly, the association of the devotee is also free. See this point. One may be fortunate to have it, or one may not have it, even after thousands of endeavors. Therefore, in all spheres of devotional service, freedom is the main pivot. Without freedom, there is no execution of devotional service. The freedom surrendered to the Lord does not mean that the devotee becomes dependent in every respect. To surrender unto the Lord through the transparent medium of the spiritual master is to attain complete freedom of life. You want complete freedom of life? Freedom from birth, death, old age, disease, adhyatmika klesha, adhibhautika klesha, adhidaivika klesha. You become free from all those things. Reinstated in our constitutional position, and we become happy. So by following the footsteps of Narada Muni. So here, Prabhupada already pointed out that here Vishnu Chakravarti also is pointing out bhakti is yadrichiki, means it is bhakti is you can be free. That so is the devotee. Bhakti is free, so is the devotee. Giving association to Vyasa is also yadrichika. So costless, without cost, just everything is everything happens by the mercy of the Lord and His devotee. Okay, the last verse. All glory and success to Sridhar Narada Muni because he glorifies the activities of the personality of Godhead, and so doing he himself takes pleasure and also enlivens all the distressed souls of the universe. Okay, Prabhupada finally concludes this purport saying the mood of Narada Muni, which is actually he is also exhibiting what is his mood. Sridhar Narada Muni, in order to enlighten the miserable inhabitants, wanders everywhere. His mission is to get them back home, back to Godhead. That is the mission of all genuine devotees of the Lord, following the footsteps of the great sage. You see what Prabhupada is saying. So the mood of all the advanced devotees is to save the lives of the conditioned people, souls. Also in which purport? I think the purport to the Bhagavad Gita, Esham to Antagatam Papam. If you see in that purport, Prabhupada says a similar thing. Why the devotees are existing in this world? Their only desire is to roam around the whole world, just to save the fallen conditioned souls. That's the mood. So you can see that Prabhupada is reminding about this mood. Okay, we will just stop here. We will have a 3-4 minutes break and we immediately will resume. We will start the 7th chapter. After this, we will be trying to see the first 11 or 12 verses of the 7th chapter. It's a very important chapter, specifically the first 12 verses, which is setting the how Vyasadeva started to write the Bhagavatam and how he taught to Shukadeva Goswami. What did he share with Shukadeva Goswami? So this also comes under the same theme. So we will just look into those verses and we will wind up the session for today. So we will continue to see chapter 7. So now if you remember, even in the previous, in the chapter 5, we see there are certain verses in which Narada is giving instruction to Vyasadeva to think of the pastimes of the Lord. He says in one verse, let's just to recollect. We will open Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 5, Text 13. Let me just give you the background so that you know. O Vyasadeva, your vision is completely perfect and your good fame is spotless. You are firm in vow and situated in truthfulness. And thus you can think of the pastimes of the Lord in trance for the liberation of the people in general from all material bondage. So he says in trance you think and you try to help. So this is one verse. Then again we can see the instruction Narada Muni is giving further how you write, and for that also is giving an instruction. Just reminding you of these verses which we already saw. This is verse 21 of the 5th chapter of the 1st canto. Your goodness has perfect vision. You yourself can know the super soul personality of Godhead because you are present as the plenary portion of the Lord. Although you are birthless, you appeared on this earth for the well-being of all people. Please therefore describe the transcendental pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, more vividly. So these are the two verses which reminds us of what now Vyasadeva, after having heard about Narada Muni's personal experience, and he got inspiration, and what he's going to do, that we will see now. Okay. So the first 4 verses deals with the scene where Vyasa is starting his meditation. Vyasa in his ashram began to meditate and could clearly see the position of Lord Krishna along with Maya taken shelter behind the Lord and the Jivas. So let's see that. Okay. Shaunaka uvacha nirgate narade suta bhagavan bhadarayanah shrutavansthad abhipretam tataking akarod vibuhu. O Suta, the great and transcendental powerful Vyasadeva heard everything from Sri Narada Muni. So after Narada's departure, what did Vyasadeva do? So this is another question. I specifically read this because wherever the questions are being posed, I'm just reading it for you to know that this Bhagavatam is full of questions and answers. So Prashna hai. So that Prashna, I will add it in that list that I'm having. So that you can also sometimes when you read, you just mark this, wherever the questions appear, you mark so that you will know, okay, here is a question, this question is resolved here, the answer is here. Like that you can relate. Throughout, then you can keep a track throughout the Bhagavatam, like that. Okay. On the western bank of the river Saraswati, which is intimately related with the Vedas, there is a cottage for meditation at Shamya Prasa, which enlivens the transcendental activities of the sages. Now Prabhupada is pointing out here. There is the Ashrama of Vyasadeva at Shamya Prasa. Srila Vyasadeva was a householder, yet his residential place is called an ashrama. It's an interesting point. So ashrama is not only this brahmachari ashrama, is considered an ashrama. Even the house of a householder, that should also be an ashrama. Ashrama is a place where you practice spiritual culture. So there's a difference between Griha Medi and Grihastha, isn't it? So he is in the house, yet what he is doing? He is following all the principles of Vedic culture. And his aim of life, what is the aim of life? Aim of life is to engage in pure devotional service, engage in the service of the Lord. So his life is molded, not you just lead life, just to get married and then just beget children and just lead life, enjoy the material world. He is considered a Griha Medi. So here we can see an ashrama is a place where spiritual culture is always foremost. It does not matter whether the place belongs to a householder or a mendicant. The whole Varnashrama system is so designed that each and every status of life is called an ashrama. This means that spiritual culture is the common factor for all. So what is the primary binding force that was helping people to keep going? That was the spiritual culture. That was the main principle. That is lost now. Nobody knows about it nowadays. But that's how the whole Vedic culture was. And kings were seeing, the kings, the rishis, the brahmanas, they were just keeping that in the front, or they were highlighting that this is the goal of human life. Nate viduhu swartha gatim hi Vishnu. The real gati, the real destination is Vishnu. So they were all remembering that. That was a focus. Okay. Therefore, none of them are less important as far as spiritual culture is concerned. So if somebody is really matured, Brahmana, or specifically Brahmachari, Grahastha, Vanaprastha, Sannyas, whatever may be one's sthana, whatever may be one's situation, what is it that is really concerned is how much is devoted in the service of the Lord. So for somebody, Brahmachari ashram may be favorable. For someone, the family life, that will be favorable for him. Someone, Vanaprastha is favorable, someone Sannyas. So whatever situation he may be, so if the spiritual culture is predominant, that's what has to be nurtured. So that's what Prabhupada is pointing out here. Therefore, none of them are less important as far as spiritual culture is concerned. The difference is a matter of formality on the strength of renunciation. The sannyasis are held in high estimation on the strength of practical renunciation. Why the sannyasi is respected so much? Because he has renounced everything for what? For that spiritual culture, giving primary importance to spiritual culture. Socially he is dead. Why? Because he is so much absorbed in Krishna's service. He has no other obligation. So a great respect is given for such personalities. Okay. In that place, Tasmin sva ashrame vyaso bhadari shandamandite asinopa upasprishya pranidhadyau manaswayam. In that place, Srila Vyasadeva, in his own ashrama, which was surrounded by berry trees, sat down to meditate after touching water for purification. Okay, now the important verses begin. These are all very important verses for us to know. And this is a very key verse which explains to us who is that absolute truth, what is the position of the absolute truth, and how he is a person, and what are his energies, where the energies are taking shelter, how the Lord is a controller of all the energies, how Maya is subservient to the Supreme Lord, how Maya cannot stand in front of the Lord. All those things are discussed in this verse, so let's pay some attention to this. Bhakti yogena manasi samyak pranihite male apashyat purusham purnam mayam chadadapashrayam. Thus he fixed his mind, perfectly engaging it by linking it in devotional service. Bhakti yoga, without any tinge of materialism. And thus he saw the absolute personality of Godhead along with his external energy, which was under full control. Apashyat purusham purnam. Purushat purnam. Very important words. Lord is a person, he is absolute. Mayam chat tad aparshrayam. That Maya is completely under the control of the Supreme Lord. That also he saw. And then, how he saw this? By engaging in devotional service, by his meditation. He engaged in the service and he was able to see that because he was in a pure state, not touched by materialism. Okay. Now let's go to Prabhupada's purport. Okay, I'm going to read the entire purport. Perfect vision of the absolute truth is possible only by the linking process of devotional service. This is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita. One can perfectly realize the absolute truth, personality of Godhead, only by the process of devotional service, and one can enter into the kingdom of God by such perfect knowledge. What's the verse? Bhakti-vaibhava vijhanati yavan yaschasmi tatvatah tato mam tatvato jnatva vishate tadanantaram. Imperfect realization of the absolute by the partial approach of the impersonal Brahman or localized Paramatma does not permit anyone to enter into the kingdom of God. We are clear with this. The Bhagavad Gita, Krishna has established this. Sri Narada advised Srila Vyasadeva to become absorbed in transcendental meditation on the personality of God and his activities. Again, we'll underline this word, we will remember this line. He is asking him to do meditation on personality of Godhead, not meditation on some vague thing. Last class also we discussed Bhagavato Rupam, the form of the Lord, not on something vague, some impersonal, hearing the one hand clapping. Nothing is said like that. Very clearly it is mentioned. Okay, let's go through this. Srila Vyasadeva did not take notice of the effulgence of Brahman because that is not absolute vision. See, while he was meditating, he was also able to see the form, the effulgence that is coming out, but he just penetrated further. The absolute vision of the personality of Godhead, as it is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita, Vasudevam Sarvamiti. In the Upanishads also it is confirmed that Vasudeva, the personality of Godhead, is covered by the golden glowing Hiranmayena Patra, the wheel of impersonal Brahman. And that when this curtain is removed by the mercy of the Lord, the real face of the Absolute is seen. Anyone of you remember from this side, Ukul Ranjan, do you remember what is the verse that is we read in Isha Upanishad? Hiranmayena Patrena Satyasya. Then Tattvam Pushana Apavranu Satya Dharmaya Drishtai. So the point is, that's the whole thing. No, I remember at the beginning of the Bhakti-vaibhava Course, we were discussing that Prabhupada is speaking about that this Bhakti-vaibhava Course includes Bhagavad Gita, Isha Upanishad, Nectar of Devotion, then what else? Nectar of Instruction. It's not that that's over. Bhakti Shastra is over, so that is we have to constantly keep reminding ourselves because these are all the fundamental principles in which we further study Bhagavatam. So always we keep reminding ourselves. Okay. So he says here, so that golden effulgence, please remove the golden effulgence so that we can see your form. That's what Prabhupada is mentioning here. And that when the curtain is removed by the mercy of the Lord, the real face of the Absolute is seen. The Absolute is mentioned here as the Purusha or person. The Absolute Personality of Godhead is mentioned in so many Vedic literatures and in the Bhagavad Gita. The Purusha is confirmed as the eternal and original person. Any verse you remember? What Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, that he is a Purusha and original person. Param Brahma, Param Dhamma. Yes, there are several verses. This is one of the verses for sure. Immediately you can say he's a Purusha, he's the topmost person. In 15th chapter all the several verses are there. Okay, let's go back to the point. Is that the Absolute Personality of Godhead is the perfect person. So that is established here. Now, in this next paragraph, see what Prabhupada is speaking about, the energies. So how the Lord is, this we have heard many times, but you see this particular verse, because this is a very important philosophical concept we need to understand as practitioners of personalism. Vaishnavism means personalism, isn't it? Energies of the Lord, we need to understand it with proper perspective. The Supreme Person has manifold energies, out of which the internal, external, marginal energies are specifically important. So when we say absolute truth, Anuttam Prabhu, what does it refer to? When we say absolute truth, what does it refer to? What are all the components of the absolute truth? Bhagavan, Paramatma, Brahman. Huh? Then that's all. Okay, please, we should never forget this. All the time we should remember this. Bhagavan, the absolute truth includes the Lord, His energy, His internal energy, external energy, marginal energy, the jivas. And also, we will see that when Vyasa saw, he also saw the various incarnations of the Lord. Absolute truth means it includes all these things. Okay. There is nothing else. When you say absolute truth, it is included in this. Nothing else is left. Okay. The internal energy, you just focus. Okay. The internal energy is there along with the absolute person. Prabhupada writes here. As there is, okay, I'll repeat again. The internal energy is there along with the absolute person as the moonlight is there with the moon. The external energy is compared to darkness because it keeps the living entities in the darkness of ignorance. The word apashrayam suggests that this energy of the Lord is under full control. The internal potency or superior energy is called Maya, but it is spiritual Maya or energy exhibited in the absolute realm. When one is under the shelter of this internal potency, the darkness of material ignorance is at once dissipated. And even those who are Atma Rama or fixed in trance take shelter of this Maya or internal energy. Now we see, that there is a Kunti Maharani is also explaining, there is we are covered by the Javanika, we are covered by the screen. So one side, internal potency and external potency. We are covered, we cannot see the Lord, we are covered by Maya. But those devotees who are completely absorbed in His service, they are in the Yoga Maya. There are two things, Mahamaya and Yoga Maya. So now, that's what Prabhupada is speaking here. Okay, so when Prabhupada is pointing out here that the devotional service performed is a function of the internal energy, that he is pointing out in the purport. Devotional service or Bhakti Yoga is a function of the internal energy. Thus, there is no place for the inferior energy or material energy. Just as there is no place for darkness in the effulgence of spiritual light. You remember in the Brahma Samhita class, we saw how Maya, she doesn't want to come in front of the Lord. Vilajyamanaya, remember that verse of the Bhagavatam in the second canto. So she's feeling shy, ashamed to come in front of the Lord. So all these ideas and statements that Lord is covered by illusion, all bogus ideas. You can see this verse is very clearly establishing. And we see when Vyasa is just looking at the Lord, he is able to see that she is far, far away. Far away. Maya, Krishna is completely under control of, Krishna is controlling Maya. Maya is completely under the control of the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna. So that is very clear. Prabhupada says, such internal energy is even superior to the spiritual bliss attainable in the conception of impersonal Brahman. It is stated in the Bhagavad Gita that the impersonal Brahman effulgence is also an emanation from the absolute personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. The Parama Purusha cannot be anyone except Sri Krishna himself, as will be explained in the later shlokas. Now that Parama Purusha is referred here as the Supreme Lord. The Supreme Lord Sri Krishna. That's what is referred to, and further verses establish that. Prabhupada is pointing out that. So we discussed this verse, this Vilajyamana. The ignorant jivas bewildered by Maya, who is ashamed to stand in sight of the Lord, boast about I and mine. So this is what happens when you are covered by Maya. This is what happens. Okay. Now comes the interesting verses. Now we saw what is Vyasa could see. What is the situation? He saw that the Supreme Lord is there. These energies are there, and Maya is also there. Now he is able to see what is the problem with the Jiva. What is the problem with the Jiva? Why the Jiva is struggling and suffering? The problem with the Jiva is that the Jiva is trying to identify himself with the matter. He is taken shelter of the Maya. And how this happened? How this happened? Long ago. Once upon a time. What did we try to do? We tried to compete with the Lord. I will also compete with Krishna. Okay, good morning. We are in the material world. Okay? And we are covered. We have been transported, as we heard today, we have 84 lakhs varieties of bodies are there. Every time we are trying to compete with Krishna. Maybe this body I can get enjoyment. This body I can get enjoyment. In this body I can get enjoyment. Again and again, Maya is just completely covering us. Now let's see how the Lord is going to give a solution. We are foolishly doing this. Now Vyasadeva is able to see, and he is now next 4 verses explains about the remedial measures. Vyasadeva saw how bhakti can destroy Jiva's conditioning and then compiled Srimad Bhagavatam and taught it to his son Shukadev. Okay, Vyasadeva, Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur nicely puts it here. He says, in order to describe the sweetness of the Lord's form, qualities and pastimes, one needs to see the Lord. But what was the purpose of Vyasa seeing Maya? Why Vyasadeva saw Maya also? And he says, there can be no prescription for cure without first seeing the disease. You go to a doctor, now you take Crozin for this, Simply, I have stomach pain, take Crozin, no problem. But you have first of all diagnosis needs to be done. Okay, why you are having fever? And right medicine has to be given. Correct? So fire has to be taken care properly. Fire is little less, then the fire has to be increased. And if the fire is too much, then you should also take prasadam at the right time. Otherwise fire will burn you. Okay, so let's see. Okay, so he says, without that, how can the patient be treated with proper medicine and food? Okay. So now you see the connection between these verses, what is happening, why he is now going with this. Okay. Yaya sammohita jiva atmanam trigunatmakam paropi manute nartam tatkritam chabipadyate. Due to this external energy, the living entity, although transcendental to the 3 modes of material nature, thinks of himself as a material product and thus undergoes the reactions of material misery. So this is the problem. We start identifying ourselves with this body and we think we are this body, we are a product of matter, and we are completely covered by the illusion. So this is what Prabhupada is discussing. The purport, Prabhupada says, root cause of suffering. What is the root cause of suffering? Even before, without reading the purport, can you say, what is the root cause of suffering?
Forgetting Krishna.
Okay. Okay. Yes, all are correct answers. Trying to enjoy this material world, identifying with the matter, the forgetfulness of Krishna. Any other thoughts?
Trying to enjoy.
Yeah, trying to enjoy this world, sure. I'm just looking for one particular term which we have studied from the nectar of devotion. Lord over material, yes, sure. But there is one, it very clearly says what is the cause of all the problems.
Not attached to Krishna.
Sorry?
Not attached to Krishna.
Yeah, these all these things you can put it in one category, one bracket, you can put everything into one. Avidya, isn't it? Avidya, this is what is the first thing is, no? What is the cause of all problems? Avidya, ignorance. Okay. I mean, does it make sense or not? Okay. You remember when we just read the nectar of devotion, everything starts from what? Avidya. From avidya. Because of avidya, what are we doing?
Karma.
We are engaging in sinful activities, isn't it? And then we get all the reactions and like that. Okay. So that's what Prabhupada is discussing in the purport. So he says, due to this unholy contact, the pure spiritual entity suffers material miseries under the modes of material nature. Okay, living being has his own thinking, feeling and willing. So now what is the point why I gave this title? Because we think we are not just some dull matter. We are conscious living personalities. We have thinking, we have feeling, we are willing. What is the difference between human being and a dead body? Yeah, it cannot think, it cannot have any feeling, it cannot have any willing. Okay.
It's not conscious.
So, it's not. So this thinking, feeling, willing is the symptom of consciousness. So that's the point. So Prabhupada is pointing out that here. It is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita that the actual knowledge of the conditioned soul is now covered by nescience. Thus, the theory that a living being is absolute impersonal Brahman is refuted herein. Nice point, isn't it? What is that verse? Aditya vajnanam prakashayati tatparam. How does jnanam tu tad ajnanam jnanam nashanam atmanah. Esham nashanam atmanah. Esham aditya vajnanam prakashayati tatparam. So the knowledge is covered. So like the sun illuminates the entire world. Similarly, we get by the proper knowledge we will be eliminated. So it's not that we are completely dull and innate matter. The present conditional state is due to the influence of the external energy, which means that the illusory energy takes the initiative while the Supreme Lord is aloof. So, see, this is now you see what Prabhupada is going to write. See, Lord is allowing the the Lord is allowing the Maya to take over us because we decide. Lord is not enforcing this because we did not want to be serve the Lord. So we are captured by Maya. So today morning in the Bhagavatam verse, in the Brahma Samhita verse, we saw there are various dharmota papa nichaya shrutayash tapamsi. Dharmota papa. Even the Lord is allowing these reactions to hit us because we deserve it, because we were rebellious to the Supreme Lord. Right? So Prabhupada writes, the Lord does not desire that a living being be illusioned by the external energy. The external energy is aware of this fact, but still she accepts the thankless task of keeping the forgetful soul under illusion by a bewildering influence. The Lord does not interfere with the task of the illusory energies because such performances of the illusory energy are also necessary for reformation of the conditioned soul. So then Prabhupada gives a famous example how the affectionate father takes care of by chastising the disobedient children. Similarly, the Lord also, He comes to rescue. So what the Lord does? What is the remedial measure the Lord does? So He has created this material world. The material world is compared to a jail. And then the Lord gives a chance to the conditioned souls to come back to Him. That's what Prabhupada further he elaborates in this purport. And he particularly says, what does he say? He says that he personally suggests that although the ways of the illusory energy are very stiff to overcome, one who surrenders unto the lotus feet of the Lord is set free by the order of the Supreme. Daivi esha gunamayi mama maya dhuratyaya mam eva ye prapadyante mayam etam tarantite. One becomes relieved from the influence of Maya. Okay. And how actually practically this happens? This practically happens by the association of the pure devotee. And by pure devotee association means what? We sit together, we eat together, we hear from him. This is the main point. Taking association, Prabhu, I want your association, Prabhu. Association means what? He will speak, you hear. He will exactly point out what is your difficult, where you are struggling, what is the deficiency. That's what the spiritual master does. Immediately he reminds us that you are Das. No? And the day of initiation, we are getting everyone gets different name. The most important part of the name we should remember is Das. Anuttama Das, Bhajanananda Das, Chitta Hari Das, Chaitanya Jivan Das. So Das we have to remember. We remember that Das of whom? Das of you are servant of Krishna. Okay. This means that the conditioned souls are being reclaimed by the Lord both ways. See, this is what I was reminding at the time. Two things Prabhupada is pointing out here. Namely by the process of punishment by the external energy of the Lord and by Himself as the spiritual master within and without. So how merciful is the Lord, no? He's just not just get lost, hell with you. He's not leaving us like that. He's giving us various ways. He's giving us an opportunity. Yeah, for you are purposefully avoiding me, you suffer for that. But nevertheless, I will not leave you. I will come in various incarnations. I will send my pure devotees. From within, I will try to inspire you. All this, Lord is ready to help us. Okay. Okay, Prabhupada is further in the purport, he is pointing out. It is clear, however, from the present statement of the Bhagavatam that the same external energy is situated in the inferior position before the personality of Godhead or the perfect being. The perfect being or the Lord cannot be even approached by the illusory energy, who can only work on the living entities. Therefore, it is sheer imagination that the Supreme Lord is illusioned by the illusory energy and thus becomes a living being. Therefore, it is sheer imagination that the Supreme Lord is illusioned by the illusory energy and thus becomes a living being. So, we saw here, because of these verses, it's very clear that that Maya doesn't want to come in front of the Lord. She is hiding herself. So, what is this Maya, this argument of that the Lord is now taken over by illusion and all this? Prabhupada is rejecting that in this purport. So, this is an important philosophical point for us to understand. So, there are many unscrupulous imaginations on the part of the monist to endeavor to put both the Lord and the living being in the same category. Had the Lord and the living beings been the same, then Srila Shukadeva Goswami would not have taken the trouble to describe the transcendental pastimes of the Lord, for they would all be manifestations of the illusory energy. Then if the illusory energy has overtaken Lord means, then she's in a higher position, then everything should be manifestation of her energy, which is not true. So that's what Prabhupada is pointing out. And Prabhupada points out that so Srimad Bhagavatam is a solution to get rid of this entanglement. That's what is the rest of the purport. So please pay attention and read this purport. Because by taking shelter of the Srimad Bhagavatam and engaging in the Lord's service, one will become free from the clutches of Maya. That's what Prabhupada is speaking here. Okay, just a small summary. I will just read. Pay attention. The root cause of suffering is the jiva's forgetting his eternal connection with the Lord. He is also forgetful of Krishna. So sambandha is lost. Suffering is healed by genuine sambandha jnana, vibrated by their spiritual master, who humbly follows the lotus footsteps of Srila Vyasadeva, Narada Rishi, and Chaturmukha Brahmadev. So that means what? In Parampara, he is receiving this transcendental knowledge and he is giving this transcendental knowledge. So what is the consequence of that? The sambandha jnana is revived. Once the sambandha jnana is revived, what is happening? Then your engagement in devotional service, which is what? Abhidheya. So remedial measures constitute abhidheya. So once you start engaging in the service of the Lord, what is the result of it? The result of it is further service, which is bliss, which is prema, which is a prayojana. Right? Okay. And we will see that these 4 verses, in the second canto, in the Chatushloki Bhagavatam, when we hear the Chatushloki Bhagavatam, these verses are all pointing to that. Pointing to that means these verses form a very fundamental basis for those 4 verses. Okay. And now, having explained that, now what is the medicine? Now very clearly in this verse it is explicitly said. So the medicine is the material miseries of the living entity, which are superfluous to him, can be directly mitigated by the linking process of devotional service. But the mass of people do not know this. Therefore, the learned Vyasadeva compiled this Vedic literature, which is in relation to the supreme truth. Prabhupada gave quite some lectures on this verse. Anartopashamam sakshat bhakti yogam adokshaje. Lokasya janato vidvang chakre satpata samhitam. Prabhupada goes on to explain how this body itself is an anartha, he says. Anartha means so many things we keep thinking, this habit, that bad habit, this attachment to this, attachment to that, and this very body is an anartha, Prabhupada is saying. Why it's like that? Question for the assembled rishis here in Karpur ashram.
Body itself is unwanted. Defective. Soul doesn't want the material.
Yes, that's a good point. Yes, that's a point. But this body is an artificial imposition on us. It's not our natural position. So it is unwanted. Correct? Body is unwanted. So this body is an anartha. Okay. So anything we try to do in regards to the body, we try to accumulate some things, we try to decorate, these are all further expansions of the anarthas. Okay, we read the translation. So please go through this purport again and make points and try to understand. These forms, again I'm repeating, these forms are very important. These purports of these first 10 verses of this particular chapter forms a very important philosophical basis of the rest of the Bhagavatam, and also why Vyasadeva wrote the Bhagavatam. Also, it's very clear from these verses. Srila Vyasadeva saw the all-perfect personality of Godhead. This statement suggests that the complete unit of the personality of Godhead includes his part and parcels also. He saw therefore, here, whatever I said before, Prabhupada writes here. He saw therefore his different energies, namely the internal energy, the marginal energy and the external energy. He also saw his different plenary portions and parts of the plenary portions, namely his different incarnations also. And he specifically observed the unwanted miseries of the conditioned souls who are bewildered by the external energy. And at last he saw the remedial measure for the conditioned souls, namely the process of devotional service. So anarthopasamam sakshat bhakti yogam adokshaya. So that is a remedy. Engage in devotional service. So he further talks about how the dormant affection for love of God can be revived by hearing and chanting. That's the rest of the purport. Okay, let's go to the next verse. So again it's further, here it is explained. Yasyam vai shruyamanayam Krishne paramapurushe bhaktir utpadhyate pumsa shoka moha bhayapaha. Simply by giving one's giving oral reception to this Vedic literature, the feeling for loving devotional service to Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of God, it sprouts up at once to extinguish the fire of shoka, moha, bhaya, lamentation, illusion and fearfulness. Well, this you have heard in the second chapter also. I'm just reminding one point. We can see of all the senses, only one sense is always active. Hearing. Huh? So you may be doing anything, but you can just hear the sound and that will bring us to attention. That will save us. So that's why this hearing is here in this particular purport. Prabhupada is stressing about the hearing and how this giving oral reception to Bhagavatam will help us to come out of the conditioning. And he speaks that the material disease, that is the way by which the material disease can disappear. Okay. And further, Prabhupada, he points out that you may say, oh, the Lord is not present for me now. But the Lord is present through his narrations. The Lord is present in his holy name, not different from the holy name. Prabhupada is pointing out that the Lord is absolute in all respects, and thus there is no difference between him and the subject matter heard about him. Therefore, hearing about him means immediate contact with him by the process of vibration of the transcendental sound. And the transcendental sound is so effective that it acts at once by removing all material affections mentioned above. So like when Temple Commander is on our case, go for the Bhagavatam class, what are you doing? Actually, he's doing the greatest welfare activity for us. We want to be in Maya, but he says that please go and then hear Bhagavatam. Okay. By hearing the subject matter of Srimad Bhagavatam, this false complexity of materialism is removed and the real peace in society begins, which politicians aspire for so eagerly in so many political situations. They can never bring that peace because they have no clue. Prabhupada points out that the politicians want a peaceful situation between man and man, nation and nation, but at the same time, because of too much attachment for material domination, there is illusion and fearfulness. Therefore, the politicians' peace conferences cannot bring about peace in society. So what can bring peace in society? Giving oral reception to Srimad Bhagavatam. That's why we have such an important work to do. We are the real United Nations. You know, the ISKCON is the real United Nations, wherein we are giving people that great opportunity by giving them an opportunity to hear about Krishna, congregating together and hearing about Krishna. People will be saved. Okay, Prabhupada is saying that what is a practical test here? He is saying that what is a practical test? Prabhupada speaks that. The conclusion is that simply by hearing the Vedic literature, Srimad Bhagavatam, one can have direct connection with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, and thereby one can attain the highest perfection of life by transcending worldly miseries, illusion and fearfulness. That these are practical tests for one who has actually given a submissive hearing for the readings of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Okay. Text 8. The great sage Vyasadeva, after compiling the Srimad Bhagavatam and revising it, taught it to his son Sri Shukadeva Goswami, who was already engaged in self-realization. Now this is interesting. So Vyasadeva, having compiled this Bhagavatam, with this matured understanding, he compiled the Bhagavatam, and then what did he do? He narrated it to his son Shukadeva Goswami. How did this happen? It was not so easy for Shukadeva Goswami, for Vyasadeva to convince Shukadeva Goswami to hear the Bhagavatam. He was not interested to come out of the womb. He was for 12 years sitting inside the womb of his mother. Vyasadeva is pleading to come out, but he doesn't want to come. So Vyasadeva, what he has to do? He has to all the way go and then meet the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna from Dwaraka, and then he has to bring him. And then he asked Krishna to speak to Shukadev and say that, you please do something about it. Let him ask him to come out. It's too much pain for his mother for 12 years sitting inside. And then Shukadeva Goswami is saying that, if you please give me assurance that I will not be covered by Maya. I know the moment I come out, I am in trouble. Krishna is giving assurance, don't worry, Maya will not touch you. You please come out. So then, finally, Shukadev came out of mother's womb. And then, after coming out and he started walking, then Vyasadeva became very much pain. And then he had to send his disciples and read verses from the Bhagavatam. Verses like Aho Bhakiyam Stanakala Kutam, then this verse of Barha Pidam, Natavara Vapu. So all this, then Shukadeva Goswami got attracted completely. Oh, let me come and hear this Bhagavatam. What my father has composed, let me hear. So he comes and then he hears and then later he speaks. So that's what has happened. Now Prabhupada says, Srimad Bhagavatam teaches us to follow the Nivritti Marga. Srimad Bhagavatam is science for following the path of Nivritti Marga, right from beginning. Second verse itself very clearly it says, Dharma projita kaitavotra paramo, kaitava dharmas, no place here, leave this place. You want pure bhakti, you will come here. So, Nivritti Marga, right from beginning. None of the material pleasures material hankerings will give you pleasure. Don't try all this path. Take a complete devotional service. That's what the Bhagavatam is pointing out. Okay. Okay, so also Vyasa had another inclination is that there are several reasons we can just go on speaking about this. Shukadeva Goswami is anyways going to now narrate this to Parikshit Maharaj. So Vyasa wanted him to hear. And also, Vyasa himself is in great ecstasy after having compiled this Srimad Bhagavatam. Naturally, if someone is ecstatic, is in great love, what he will do, he will try to share it with others, no? Specifically, father. What the father will do? Father will naturally want to give it to his son. So that's what Vyasa they want to do, share this knowledge with his son. Okay. Now, Shaunaka Rishi questions the reason for Shukadeva Goswami's endeavor to learn Srimad Bhagavatam and Suta's answers. And I have only 13 minutes left. This section I will do in the next class, no problem. I'll stop here. So, if you have any questions or comments, we have 3 verses here, we can cover that also. But anyway, if you have any questions, first of all, I will just go see. If you have any questions or comments, we will just deal with that. If there is time, I will just, it's only some few summary I will have to discuss. We can discuss that. But let me first give some time for you if you have any questions or comments or something is not clear. Yes? Huh? Radar. Oh, radar is, actually what it does is, well, it's not directly to do with Bhagavatam, but I'll just give an example. Radar is if you go to the airports, it actually captures several signals and it gives information for the directions and so many waves they capture and then so many meaningful information are derived from that. It's a technical term. Basically, it's an instrument which catches different signals. Yes.
Can we understand like this? Verse number 4 explains about internal energy and verse number 5 explains about external.
Verse number 4 speaks about internal energy. Let us see what we are speaking about.
Bhakti again.
1.7.4. Thus he fixed his mind, perfectly engaging in it by linking in devotional service without any tinge of materialism. And thus he saw the absolute personality of Godhead along with his external energy, which was under full control.
In purport, Prabhupada explains about internal energy.
Yeah, I'll get back to that. Due to this external energy, the living entity, although transcended to the 3 modes of material nature, thinks of himself as a material product and thus undergoes the reactions of material miseries. No, it's not like that. How do you understand this? Exactly as you said. Prabhupada in the purport he explains about, there is the Lord, he is completely along with his Chit Shakti, which is his internal energy. And now Maya, in this verse it is said that Maya is completely under her control, external energy is under his control, and she is at a far distance. So it's not that in this verse he is speaking about external energy, in the next verse he is speaking about the internal energy. It is not like that. In this verse itself, everything is captured, that the Lord is there in his abode with his internal energy, and Vyasadeva is able to see that, And also he's seeing, specifically here it is mentioned that he's seeing how Maya is behind, far away and taking shelter. So I don't see anything specifically anybody has mentioned like that, but this is the understanding. Because in the purport itself, Prabhupada is mentioning that. There's internal energy and external energy. He's able to differentiate very clearly on that. Any other questions? Okay, then we have another 5 minutes. We will just see this 2 more verses. So that will complete one section actually. Maybe we will see maybe 1 or 2 verses. I don't know how much time we have. Okay. The great sage Vyasadeva, this is text 8. After compiling the Srimad Bhagavatam and revising it, taught it to his son Sri Shukadeva Goswami, who was already engaged in self-realization. So as I explained before, Vyasadeva was inspired after hearing from Narada Muni, and he got that's many times we see as a matured writer. We hear this, Prabhupada also writing elsewhere. That means what? He compiled everything, and now Bhagavatam with the whole mood of pure devotion, he compiled this Bhagavatam. And he heard all the essential of whatever the Lord Krishna has given the knowledge to Brahma. Brahma in turn gave the knowledge to Narada. Narada gave this knowledge to Vyas, and then with full realization now Vyasadeva compiled it. So that's what Prabhupada is speaking about here in the purport. Prabhupada is pointing out here specifically with the date of the Bhagavatam, when the Bhagavatam, which is according to revealed scriptures and astrological calculation, the age of Kali is in its 5000th year. Therefore, Srimad Bhagavatam was compiled not less than 5000 years ago. Mahabharata was compiled before Srimad Bhagavatam, and the Puranas were compiled before Mahabharata. So there is an estimation of the date of compilation of the different Vedic literatures. The synopsis of Srimad Bhagavatam was given before the detailed description under instruction of Narada. The synopsis means the essence was given by Narada to Vyasa. That's what Prabhupada speaks. Srimad Bhagavatam teaches us to follow Nivritti Marga. Srimad Bhagavatam is a science for following the path of Nivritti Marga. The path of Nivritti Marga was condemned by Narada. The path of Pravritti Marga was condemned by Narada. That path is the natural inclination for all conditioned souls. In fact, if you remember, in the 5th chapter, this is what Narada is chastising Vyasa. The way you have compiled everything else is promoting Pravritti Marga. So that's why he's using this word Jugupsitam. Condemned. All these big writings. What is all these things? In fact, it is something like that. He's saying that he's saying that what is all these literatures are for what? This is not giving the real essence. So please compile this Bhagavatam. That's what he's pushing. Okay. Verse 9. Sri Saunaka asked Sutta Goswami. Sri Sukadeva Goswami was already on the path of self-realization, and thus he was pleased with his own self. So why did he take the trouble to undergo the study of such a vast literature? This is interesting. He is already on that transcendental platform. Okay? Why he has to take the trouble? What is the need for a person like Shukadeva Goswami? So here Prabhupada is answering. The Atma Ramas are completely indifferent to material enjoyment in every respect. Srila Shukadeva Goswami had already attained that stage, and still he was attracted to undergo the trouble of studying the great Bhagavatam literature. This means that Srimad Bhagavatam is a postgraduate study even for the Atma Ramas, who have surpassed all the studies of Vedic knowledge. If you remember the position of Shukadeva Goswami, when Vyasadeva was walking, the young women who were taking bath, they tried to cover themselves. They were feeling shy and tried to cover themselves. But when Shukadeva Goswami, he himself didn't wear any dress, he was walking naked. But these women, they had no problem when he was walking. That was his status. And when they were questioned why it is like that, because Vyasa could differentiate, this is male, this is female. Shukadeva Goswami is even in a very higher platform. He doesn't differentiate anything. He just completely is in the transcendental platform. Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma. He is completely in that platform. So that is here is a very interesting inquiry. The rishis are asking Sutta Goswami why he is now taking so much trouble. So now comes the most famous verse of this Bhagavatam, which is being discussed by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also. Atma Ramascha Munayo Suta Uvacha Atma Ramascha Munayo Nirgranta Apyarukrame Kurvanta Hetuking Bhaktin Ittang Bhuta Guno Harihi. Suta Goswami said, all different varieties of Atma Ramas, especially those established on the path of self-realization, though freed from all kinds of material bondage, desire to render unalloyed devotional service unto the personality of Godhead. This means that the Lord possesses transcendental qualities and therefore can attract everyone, including liberated souls. Atma Ramascha Munayo Nirgranta Apyurukrame. So the Lord is Urukrama. Is the proper translates word to word. He says, great adventurer. He attracts by his amazing activities. He attracts even the liberated personalities that are attracted by him. And who are these Atma? They are already free from all bondage, but even that personalities are attracted. And what it is said, Kurvanti Ahaituking Bhakti. So what is so? It establishes the superiority of the bhakti. Why? Because even these great personalities want to render devotional service to the Supreme Lord. Ittam Bhuta. Why? Because of the great qualities of the Supreme Lord Hari. Ittam Bhuta Guno Hari. The transcendental qualities are so attractive, attracting the liberated souls. Now, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he discussed with Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, he had so much Vedantic discussion, and then it came to a pinnacle or a height when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave several explanations of this particular verse. I think first time he used some 18 explanations. Then later when he is instructing Sanatana Goswami on the same verse, again he is giving further explanations. So this particular verse, every word is in Sanskrit, different meanings can be derived from that, and then various meanings for this particular verse Chaitanya Mahaprabhu derived, and then he showed how the superiority of bhakti, that how even the great impersonalists also, impersonalists and also those who are on the transcendental platform, everyone is attracted by the exceptional qualities of the Lord, which attracts the attention of everyone. So please, I'm not going to get into the purport of it. You please spend time, and then it's an important purport. Focus on this purport. Try to know the essential meanings. Prabhupada is giving one set of meaning, and you can focus on those meanings, and then just try to understand what is being discussed here. I just would like to just speak about Urukrama. The word Urukrama means the one whose activities are glorious. Krama means step. The word Urukrama specifically indicates the Lord's incarnation as Vamana, who covered the whole universe by immeasurable steps. Lord Vishnu is powerful, and his activities are so glorious that he has created the spiritual world by his internal potency and the material world by his external potency. By his all-pervading features, he is there everywhere present as the supreme truth, and in his personal feature, he is always present in his transcendental abode of Goloka Vrindavan, where he displays his transcendental pastimes in all variegatedness. His activities cannot be compared to anyone else's, and therefore the word Urukrama is just applicable to him only. So nobody can perform wonderful activities for the Supreme Lord. And also the stress is given on Hayatuki Bhakti, how the Bhakti is costless. So please go through this purport, which specifically gives the glory of every word. And this is what we saw. So specifically by his personal features, what is so attractive, and you can see even this verse of Aho Bhakiyam Stanakala Kutam, then that particular, so here, who is speaking that? Uddhava is speaking that. Uddhava is saying that, see, the Lord, who can be more merciful than my Lord? That Putana, she came with the poison smeared on her breast. She came to kill the Lord, but the Lord very mercifully, he accepted the milk that she wanted to offer, but in the process he took her life. But again he gave the position of mother. Who can be more merciful than the Lord? So these are there are unlimited qualities of the Lord which are very attractive. And that's what Prabhupada concludes the purport. He says, by his personal features and transcendental attributes, the Lord attracts all psychological activities of a pure devotee. Such is the attractive power of Lord Krishna. The attraction is so powerful that a pure devotee never hankers for any one of the 4 principles of religion. These are the attractive features of the transcendental attributes of the Lord. Adding to this the words api and cha, one can increase the imports unlimitedly. According to Sanskrit grammar, there are 7 synonyms for the word api. So by interpreting each and every word of the shloka, one can see unlimited numbers of transcendental qualities of Lord Krishna that attract the mind of a pure devotee. So as you study further grammar and get more absorbed in further study of Sanskrit, well, you can take this verse one day peacefully and start glorifying the Lord, how in various ways He has been glorified. And Sanskrit will have its real profound effect at the time when you glorify the Lord. That's the whole aim of Sanskrit study also, isn't it? By the Sanskrit study we try to glorify the Lord. Okay. Okay. So these, as I explained you, these in this particular chapter, this up to this, we saw up to verse 11 or 10. Okay. So these verses form the important basis, so please pay attention to these 10 verses. It has got an important philosophical theme, so you have to know these verses properly. And so Shukadeva Goswami became completely inspired, and then he himself underwent serious study of his Bhagavatam, and then later he narrated it to Parikshit. So there is some other little backgrounds about Shukadeva Goswami, how he was born and what was the thing. So that we will discuss in the next class. And next class we will also discuss about the rest of the chapter, how Drona was punished, and then like a little story like that. And there are some very good philosophical points which will also be captivating to us. Many bhakti points are also explained there. So we will stop here. If you don't have any questions, we will stop here. So shall we wind up for the day? Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Hare Krishna.